Hey guys, welcome back to another 3D printing video. And in this video, we're going to be looking at this forge finder and most importantly, how the prints come out of this machine. So let's get started. So if this is your first time here, I got this printer on eBay for a really good price. That was a customer return parts only sale, and it had a few issues. So all that is resolved and the printer is back to its original state and now it's printing. So with that said, let's take a look at the first thing I had to do to this thing to even get started. So here we are at the back of the printer, and as you can see, I have a whole spool holder up here. And the reason I needed this is because the original spool holder that comes with the flash forge does not fit any of the normal spools. And so I did a very simple modification here. But before I show you this, let's look at this original spool holder here. So this is the spools that it comes with. I don't know if you can tell, but that's quite a bit smaller. It's smaller in diameter and also smaller in the width here. So it's just a completely different kind of spool that just won't work unless you have exactly, this size. So after thinking about how I should do this, I decided to go this route, and the reason for that is because I can always remove this very easily, and plus it's very minimalistic. I like when things are simple and work easily. So let me just take this thing apart so I can show you guys. So this is a spool holder from the Reality Under 2. So what I did is I just threaded it into here flush with the bottom and then just put it on some glue, E6000 glue, which this stuff just peels right off, but it's very sturdy. As you can see, I could move the whole printer with it. I can even pick up the whole printer. So here I just have a couple caps, and the reason I have these here makes it where the spool has a good surface area to sit on, and also accommodates this next piece, which I 3D printed. So this is just a cylinder, and what this is for, it's just a spacer for here and then to fit in here, so the spool is centered, because if I just put the spool on like that, the spool wobbles on there a lot, and so the spool just nicely goes on there just like that, and we got ourselves a nice little spool holder. So I've printed a bunch of stuff already and the spool holder works perfectly. And here on the top you can see how it's being fed almost directly into the extruder here. And that's pretty much all this printer needs, is just that external spool holder somewhere. Everything else on this printer is ready to go and doesn't really need any other upgrades. So as you can see guys, so far this printer is something that you can just take out of the box and start using. So this is a great beginner's machine. And so far my overall impression of this machine is very friendly and easy to use. So before I show you all the little prints that I've made on this machine, let's check out how easy it is to operate. So our little plug in the back is on, and all you got to do is just click this thing and it powers up. As you guys saw down there, the light turns on and our screen comes up, and then our light turns off because I have that off in the settings. And here's what the menu we start with. So here we have a build, a preheat, and tools. So preheat, if you want to get your nozzle here up to temperature. Build is internal storage, what you already put in the printer, or you can plug in a USB on the side here, or you can do it through the cloud option. So under tools, we have quite a few options here. Here's where you will load and unload your filament. So whenever you load it, it'll preheat and then it'll extrude, and unload would simply heat it up. Here's where you will level the bed, which works fairly okay, but for me it hasn't been perfect, so I will manually adjust it after it. Here we have a home button. If you push this, everything goes home, meaning all the accesses. Here we have manual controls where you can move everything manually just by clicking these buttons here. So down here we have settings, and that's going to be all your settings like language, Wi-Fi, the cloud, extruder calibration, and the startup sound. Now if you noticed, I turned off my startup sound because I don't like that little music that it plays in the beginning. So here we have a status button, and that just kind of gives us basic information there. And we have the about, and on the about it tells you all about your printer, and most importantly how much you've used it. And as you can see guys, I have 48 hours on here already. When I first powered this printer on, we only had 2 hours, so we already have 48, and I feel like I'm just only starting. So yeah, it's cool that it tracks your hours there, so later you can see how many hours you printed. So this printer is very, very kid friendly. So if you're thinking about a printer for children or even teens, I would say this is a great printer to start with. Alright, so I want to change my red PLA here to something else. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the filament button here and unload. And what that's going to do is it's going to preheat the nozzle here. Once it's hot enough, we'll able to pull this out. So here on the extruder arm part, there's a little button here that you push. And what I like to do is I like to push the filament in a little bit so it comes out the bottom, and then pull it out fairly quickly. And when you do that, you know, you get a pretty clean end here. If you pull it out too slow, you might get too stringy and all kinds of craziness. So good to kind of quickly pull it out. So here we have a blue roll of filament. So normally when the extruder is already preheated, I'll go ahead and put the new filament in. Now you can go back and go into the settings and do the, you know, load filament, and all that does is just make the extruder in here drive where it pushes this down on its own. And also a tip is make sure your end is nice and sharp. So cut it on an angle, that way it goes in easy. Because sometimes that's an issue too. So once I get it in there, once it stops, I'll push on it a little bit. And when I do that, you guys can see my fingers going down slowly. So what's happening is the filament's already coming out the other side. And you can see that right there, it's, you know, seeping out. So it's simple as that. So after you got your filament in and you got your bed leveled, which you just follow the wizard on here, it's pretty simple. So leveling the bed is kind of a big deal, and it'll take a learning curve to get used to. But if you want to get a good print, especially if it's your first time using the printer and things like that, print with the raft mode on your slicer. And we're going to take a couple seconds and look at the slicer here in a minute. But when you do transfer your file into the printer, you will find it in the build internal storage here, and you can see here all the things that I have on here that I've printed so far. So all you're going to do is just hit on that, and then you're going to have, you know, a couple options here. You're going to click on build, and you got yourself a build started. It tells you how much time you got left there. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it since we're not printing that. Let's go ahead and move to the slicer, and I can show you guys real quick how that process goes. Alright, so what you're looking at is the flash print is what they call it, I guess, a program, flash print. And this is what it looks like when you first come in. So you get a little box here, and that is the size of the printer here. When you install this program, it'll ask you, you know, what printer you're using and all that stuff. So it shouldn't be too difficult to get started to this page here. So here on the top we have a few buttons. Here is where you're going to load in the model. This is the supports for the model, and this is where you're going to print it, or I guess slice it, they call it. So you're gonna, you know, make the file for the printer. Here on the side we have the view button, and if you click on it, you get, you know, more options of where you want to view. So if you want to go top view, you know, you can do that, or you just use your mouse here to, you know, scroll around. So here you can move the objects. So let's go ahead and bring an object. So I'm going to load something in here. So let's just say a benchy, since we know everyone knows what that is pretty much. So if you wanted to move your benchy, if you put your arrow on it and just click it, you can move it like that when you're in the move setting here. Or you can, you know, move it manually like that. This rotates the model in different directions. Or you can also rotate it here manually if you want a perfect rotation. Here we have scale, and also if you click on it and drag, you can scale it. As you can see, we can make a pretty big benchy. Now whenever you see that little grayed out area right there that comes up, that means it doesn't fit anymore. So once it doesn't fit, it grays out like that. So this will be the maximum benchy we can print. But in any case, you get the idea. Well, actually we're still grayed out in the back there, so there we go. So yeah, very simple software to use, as you can see, guys. And here we have a cut button, which is really cool if you wanted to cut something in half and print it sitting down or something. So here are the settings for that. So let's say we want some supports for our benchy, for all those overhangs. So what we're gonna do is come over here on the top, click support, and then out of support. And it's going to generate a bunch of supports everywhere. Now the reason the supports are like this is because this is the option I chose. Want the ones that are original with this thing, which is the tree-like. You can have that support. So just click on auto again. And there goes those. So you can kind of experiment with what kind of supports you like better and which ones are easier to take off. So once you get your model where you want it and stuff like that, how you want it, then what you're going to do is you're going to click on this print button. So what you see right here, this is the expert mode, and I have this turned on. If you want the expert mode, so you're going to click on file and then preferences, and then you're going to click on print, and then here it says printing window type expert mode or basic. So let's go back to basic, because that's what most of you guys will see and use. And this is where you can set up all the different parameters for the printer. This printer has a few choices here. We got PLA, conductive PLA, and flexible material. So because this thing has looks to be appeared like a direct extruder drive, it should do really good with flexible filament. And here you can enable supports or disable them. And then the raft, what I was talking about earlier, if you don't have your bed leveled or you don't understand how to level the bed right away and don't have it perfect, then you can use the raft mode here, which will print a raft underneath your model and then print the model on top of that. Here we have the quality of the print, meaning the resolution, how detailed it is. So I recommend printing everything in high unless you gotta go absolutely faster. You can go in standard. Low is probably not a good option to print it, but maybe still okay depending on the part and what you're doing. So I like to print in high. Hyper just takes way too long. It does look a little better, but the time is considerably higher. So high seems to be the best for me, at least all arounder. So if you're gonna use a raft, you don't need to use any of this stuff. If you are not using a raft and you want to use a brim, that just puts stuff around it. And here on the bottom, you can see there's more options. If you want to see what, you know, a little bit more in detail what's going on, you can kind of go in here and go through all the settings, you know, what kind of infill you have, and you know, the temperature you can adjust here. And if you found, you know, the settings you like, you can click save configuration and it'll always be the same when you come back. So here on the top, when you click OK over here, this will preview the slice. This will go ahead and print it if you have it already connected to your computer or whatever. But usually we'll just leave it on preview. So if we push OK, it's going to try to save it and it's going to slice it. So right now it's working and slicing the model here. We have a really huge benchy, so this is going to be a little bit longer than normal, actually a lot longer than normal. So there it goes, it has been sliced. And you have a little bar here on the side where you can drag. It's going to be a little laggy, sorry guys. This file is, or the slice is large, so the computer is lagging a bit. But you can see the, you know, the process that it's going through. So that's pretty neat. So over here on the side, you have some information. It tells you how much time this will take, 13 hours and 24 minutes, and how much filament it'll use. And if you click on this button here, it'll tell you a little bit more information and about how much. Usually I like to look at this number here, how much grams it's going to take from my filament, from my filament roll. So if you want to go back and reslice this thing, you'll click back, and if you want to go ahead and print, you'll click on print. And here is where you need to connect the printer. So you can either use the file that was saved onto the computer when we sliced it and then take it to the printer through a, you know, USB flash drive, or you can go ahead and connect your USB cable from the computer to the printer and then connect it, and then it'll send it to the printer and start printing. So as you can see guys, all of this is very simple and not hard, and it's all automated pretty well. So this software is very, very easy to use for beginners. So that'll be it for the slicer here. Hopefully all this made sense a bit, and as you can see guys, you can get started pretty quick with this printer. Alright, so now I want to show you some of the things that I've printed. And so this was one of the first prints that came out of this printer. Actually, this one right here, you can see there's like a little bit of under extrusion right there, but other than that, it actually printed pretty good right off the bat there. So, and it was on a raft. That's what the bottom looks like. So then shortly after that, I printed another one here, and it turned out pretty good. Now there is a little bit of a line through here, and at first I was confused why that line was there, but then I realized that the slicing software actually compresses the model down because the size doesn't match exactly. And so I don't know if it makes sense, but it squishes it. So one of the lines, or one of the layers, squishes into the other layer. So right after that, I decided to print a benchy just like it was. I was curious how it would come out. And this is the PLA that was inside the machine that came with it. And as you can see, it is really stringy, kind of. There's a lot of layer lines on here. Surprisingly, the bottom turned out alright, but look at those layer lines. They're pretty heavy, and I can feel them like pretty hard there. So after installing the spool holder, I was able to use other filaments, and this filament here I know very well. But I still have a weird looking squish line right here, and it's popping out. So it seems like it's compressing my model down because the layers don't match or something. I'm not sure. But other than that, I mean, the details are there. It's just kind of stringy and got little blobs here and there. So So this is the second one I printed. So after doing a little more tweaking, I went ahead and printed this third one, and as you can see, it's much better now. On the sidewall here, you can see the reflection. You know, we got a much better finish there without anything too weird. There is something funny going on right here in the front, but I'm not sure exactly what happened there. Something happened. So I thought I would print another model, and this is where this little frog comes in. Or maybe he's not that little, but he's a pretty good size. It actually turned out way better than I thought it would, especially here on the back, guys. You can see it's pretty uniform. So overall, the structure looks pretty good, but I don't know if you guys noticed there, you can see some pitting in the body. There's like little holes here and there. There we go. And that's from under extrusion. And the problem with that was my own doing, which I installed this little tube here to go through the filament, so the filament can go through it before it goes into the extruder in here, so it kind of guides it. And I think what was happening is it would snag on the filament. But overall, he looks really good, and the part that surprises me is the under the chin here. This is a pretty steep area here, you can see, but it printed very nice. Now below that it's a little rough, but that's understandable how steep that is. So overall, I was still a little frustrated, and I printed a bunch of retraction tests. So hopefully you can see them, but these are all the retraction testing I did. And as you can see, that a lot of them have, you know, pretty terrible retraction problems. So after printing a bunch of them and trying to tune it in, this one right here is the best I got. And as you can see, it's pretty good overall. There's a little bit of hairs on the top, So after figuring out the, you know, little hair problems, I decided to print another benchy. And this time, guys, it actually turned out really good. Like, there's no wisps or hairs pretty much anywhere, and it actually finally looks good. So I was pretty happy that I got it to this point, and I think this is the best that it will be. And you can see here on the wall is also very nice. Now those lines that you see, that's just a miscoloring of the plastic for some reason, but that's actually flat, and it's actually very smooth. Like if I run my finger on that, it's very even. So we still do have an issue here in the front a little bit, just a little bit, but overall it's very good. So I'm very happy with how this looks like. So after this, I got a little more confidence to print something bigger, and I started printing a statue, but I went ahead and stopped it. And if you guys can see that, there is some kind of weird under extrusion right there. So I was a little bit discouraged because I didn't know what was going on. I thought I had everything figured out. So I went ahead and restarted it, thinking that maybe my filament mount here was giving me trouble. But sure enough, it was not, because I had the exact same lines appear on the second one I tried to print here. So you can see here them together that those lines are exactly in the same spot. So I said, well, what the heck, let's just keep on printing. So I kept printing, and over here this piece is actually broken off because it was barely holding on. But you can see that it had a pretty bad under extrusion where it almost didn't stick. So it was weird how it was okay and then it was not okay, and then when it got to this part, it was just terrible. As you can see, like it was just going all bad. So that's when I decided to stop it, and I wanted to give up on this. I thought I'm gonna print something else and see if it works. And that's when this little baby owl comes in. And as you can see, this looks a million times better, and there's nothing weird going on here. Everything's perfect, no under extrusion or whatever. And not only that, I was blown away that you can see here on his feathers, there's like little indentions there of like a feather look. I mean, that is a very fine detail, and it's all over him, and it turned out really good. Obviously here the overhangs, you know, kind of failed a bit, but that's, you know, that's pretty normal for that steep of an angle. So, and by the way, guys, all these prints that I'm showing you were all printed in 0.12 layer height. So after seeing this owl turn out this good, I knew that my last print had some kind of issue. So I went and downloaded the STL file again and resliced it. And sure enough, this is what we got. So after I re-downloaded the STL file and resliced it, I got perfection. So what happened was my slice, the file that went to the printer, was corrupt, and that's what was making all those lines and doing all that weird stuff. And you can see, guys, that is very nice. And like I said, those lines that you see right there, I think it might be even the filament. I'm not sure exactly what's causing the discoloration of shiny and then matte, but if you can look at the light, the shadows, you can see how smooth that is. And so there's no steps here. It's just the discoloration on the filament for some reason. But you can see here on his nose and everywhere that. And honestly, I wasn't expecting this good of a detail from this printer. I thought this printer, you know, was more of a kind of beginner printer, you know, kids can use. But this is actually a very viable printer that can be used for actual more serious, I guess, work. So this is kind of a cute little thing. It's like a slug, and it's made out of like these connectors here that move. So this was like a really nice little print, and that just shows you, you know, that it's capable of detailed prints, even though the tolerances on this are pretty huge. But you know, printing something like this is not an issue for this printer either. So this is a really cute thing, and you can print this out. The kids love this. This is actually super fun to play with. So you can print this out for your kids. Alright, so the next thing I did was I wanted to try out the vase mode. Sometimes there'll be a situation where you want to print something like this, you know, with the hollow inside. Now, as you can see on the reflection there, it turned out amazing overall. Now that said, there's an issue, and I don't know if this is my fault, but here on the top, it actually tried to make a layer, a single layer on the top, which I don't understand why. Thought vase mode, you know, leaves the top out, but maybe not in this circumstance, because, you know, if you were printing a statue, you would obviously want it to go to the top and finish. Setting thing that I didn't know how to adjust, so I still have to learn. But these would be easy enough just to break off. As you can see, they just literally, they're just like little hairs that pop off. And there we go, there's no more top. So that was super easy to take off. So this printer does very, very good with vase mode also, as you can see. Now what you're seeing is the height here, and this is almost the maximum height that this printer can do, which is about 102 millimeters, I think this vase was. So I think it lets you go to about 104 or so, just to kind of give you an idea. You know, this is the maximum height. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I want to print something a little bit more practical here on this printer. So let's go ahead and load our file here. So these are pliers. I'm not sure how they're going to turn out, but they're just like a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers. And you can see, guys, this is pretty much, you know, from one end to the other, barely fitting on the bed here. So let's click on print. So it's going to ask us how we want to do it. Obviously we want it on high here, and we're going to look at all our options here, and everything looks pretty good. Maybe the infill needs to be a little bit more, since these are pliers and might be used. We're just going to make that 20%. Temperature is very important, so since we're doing just PLA, I think 200 will be perfect. And that looks pretty good overall. So that's all we need to do. The next thing, we just click OK, save. So what you're going to want to do is hit that print button. I'm going to be using a USB cable that connects to the printer. And here you can see where the printer connects, and here is your, you know, if you want to bring it in with a little flash drive. So after the printer powers on, I can go back to my computer over here, and I'm going to hit print, and it's going to ask to connect. So you're going to click connect. So if you already were connected, it's going to give you a warning like something's wrong, but just OK it and push print again. And now it sends the file over here. As you saw that, it says please wait, and now it knows what we're printing exactly right there. So it has started the printer. So now it's just going to heat up, and then it's going to start printing. So I totally forgot to put some glue on here. I need to go ahead and do that. So the printer is printing right now, and you can see that it has 2 hours and 41 minutes. And if you click on this button here, you can see what has happened so far. So it's been 23 minutes since it started. So much it traveled on the Z-axis, so not very far. And how much filament you used, and the printing speed. And apparently you can adjust the printing speed by clicking on it and then adjusting it here. So you can here turn on your light on and off, which we're going to keep it off because we're doing a time lapse. And speaking about time lapses, I have a GoPro right here set up, and I'll show you guys that at the end of the print how I got that GoPro set up. So it's kind of hard to see anything here from the top, but let's see if we can get a little peek. You can see our parts are getting printed pretty well. Alright, and the print is done, and it took 3 hours and 7 minutes. I'm just going to push OK there. I ran a time lapse, and I built this little rig here that I have just off of the parts I had from a GoPro, which is really cool because it's just these little teeth here, and I just grab them to the bottom of the bed like that. So maybe later, eventually, I'll build a special bracket, but for now, this seems to work pretty decently well. I'm not sure exactly what happened, guys, but I don't think I leveled the bed good enough, and maybe didn't put enough glue, I'm not sure. but that's what happens. But in any case, it printed and it looks pretty good. So here's the bottom, what it looks like. So I guess these just kind of go together, and you can tell here that we had some kind of issue going on. So I think our supports didn't print like they're supposed to or something. I did something wrong, but I'm still learning a slicer, so this is the first time I do something like this. But technically this should just click into here, and it looks like our tolerances are not right or something, or because this stuff lifted off the bed a little bit here and there, it's just not fitting like it's supposed to. Maybe I can try to smash it together right there, because it's going in kind of, but just not going in all the way. Alright, let's see if we can just put some pressure on this. There we go. So now we went in, but I'm not sure if it's going to operate. I have a feeling it might break. Oh yeah, it's super. Yeah, it's okay. I just broke it. Well, there we go. It was going, but it was going really rough. Maybe I should have oiled it up a bit. In any case, so that was kind of a fail, but mostly I think that was my fault because I didn't start the print right. You guys get the idea. You can build pretty neat stuff with this printers. Alright guys, and this is the Flash Forge Finder. As you saw, you know, we got really good print quality on this thing. And you know, it's so friendly to use right out of the box. The touchscreen is definitely one of my favorite things. And there's not much upgrading you need to do or at all, basically. It has everything it needs. The only thing is the spool holder, but that's not too hard to rig something up. So obviously the only thing you'll be able to print with this printer is PLA because of the, you know, non-heated bed. And that brings it kind of to its downfall, is because it does not have a heated bed, so it's not as friendly with different materials. And even as you saw, you know, our little pliers there didn't want to stick. So, but that might have been just my own fault leveling it. So you really got to have some good adhesion to the bed. But other than that, this thing is a winner in my opinion, and it'll print and probably accommodate pretty much everything you'd ever want to build. Especially for a starter printer, this is a great place to start for sure. And for kids, this would be just amazing, I guess, of all ages. So yeah, this printer has been a little bit of a journey for me, from unboxing it to repairing it, you know, to getting it to print good like I like it. So now I finally got it where I can just send anything to it and it'll print it out for me. And that's kind of exciting because now I can hand this thing off to my son and see if he can, you know, use this thing and enjoy it, because I'd like him to get into this kind of stuff. Because kids have great imaginations and they can build pretty interesting things. So overall, I'd give this printer a big thumbs up. Alright guys, so if you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, I got a lot more 3D printing stuff coming up. We're going to be unboxing a new printer again soon. And there's other things going on also on the side that will be popping up eventually. So stay tuned for all those things, guys. So if you enjoy videos like this and you want to see more and you're not subscribed, then hit that subscribe button. And as always guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.